Welcome to Women and Resistance, a powerful podcast where we honor the courage, resilience, and revolutionary spirits of women across the globe. Hosted by Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, we uncover untold stories of defiance against systemic oppression, whether colonialism, racism, sexism, or economic injustice. From historic icons like Winnie Mandela and Fannie Lou Hamer to today's trailblazers, we shine a light upon those shaping a more just world. This is a call to honor the past, embrace the present, and build an empowered future. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of Women and Resistance. And this episode is coming to you, as usual, as we do a regular review of, this is a regular review of the 12 episodes that have gone before. So basically, it's going to be a review of this season, of the fourth season of Women and Resistance. Yeah, 4 seasons. That means we've talked about 48 remarkable women. And this evening is not going to be an exception. And so I'm your host, Adesoji Iginla. With me is my co-host that normally goes into character, but today she is going to stay out of character to a larger extent. And she is none other than Fubara Eneli Esquire, author Your Self Revolution, Kwanzaa a Celebration, host Rethinking Freedom. And so, welcome, sister.
Thank you.
Yes, for the first time, we can refer to you by your real names.
That's actually a comment that I've gotten from some people is instead of having my name on the screen, that we should have the name of whoever I am.
Okay, you're playing
anybody.
Oh, sorry. You're embodying for the night. Okay. So,
but we'll see how that goes.
So first, let's set the table for our listeners who might be joining us for the first time. So, Women and Resistance is a podcast that brings history's most extraordinary Black women or African women back into the room. Literally, Sister Aya here embodies each figure. She becomes them, and we have the honor and the challenge of, I have the honor and challenge of interviewing the respective guest. But we also need to be clear what this podcast is about. And for that, I will hand over to Sister. Could you tell us what inspired Women and Resistance?
Oh, my goodness. It seems like we've been doing this for such a long time that, let's go back to the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC. That is to show my colonial training, Sound of Music.
That's good.
How many years ago? It's been a while now. I started working on a project where I was hungry for the stories of women of African descent. And I wanted to combine it with the work I also do as I'm an attorney, but I'm also a life coach. And the work that I do in terms of motivating, hopefully inspiring, people really motivate themselves, but inspiring women in particular. And I wanted to write a book. I still want to write a book. I've started it. But anyway, I wanted to write a book where I would identify a woman of African descent for 365 days of the year. And so you'll get this book, and every day you will get just a brief synopsis of that woman. And then I would ask some journal prompts to make you think of how you can apply what you're learning about that person to your life, things you can think through, and then provide affirmation. So it was a way of blending some of my loves, my love for history and my love for women empowerment, inspiring people. And then there would be affirmations that people could use as well based on what these women that I would be covering have done. So fortunately or unfortunately, I shared that story with you, that was something that I was working on. And of course, I don't know, a few weeks later or whatever, you bopped up with this great idea of, wait a second. Why don't we have a YouTube, session, whatever episodes where you cover each woman, you cover a woman each week. And that will also keep me disciplined enough to finish the work. Because I think at the time that I talked to you, I researched a little over 100 women. Well, no, I'd written about over 100 women. So I'd already done my research in terms of identifying the 365 women. But now it was doing the research and really writing on each of them. So at the time that we talked, I'd done about a third of them. And I had stalled because I started working on other projects and things like that. And so you said, hey, let's do this. And that way it's going to keep you honest in getting the work done. And that's how this started. And my initial thought was I would just come on and you would ask some questions and I would share some facts about the life of this person. But for those of you who remember, the very first episode was Billie Holiday. And I told this story before, so you can go back and look at the review on that. So I'm going to make this really brief. But essentially, the spirit of Billie Holiday was like, you just going to sit in front of a computer and just talk about me? Like, what is that? And I was like, well, what do you want? And then she says, at least put a gardenia in your hair, like, try to represent me in some way.
Yeah.
And if you watch the first episodes, by the time you get to like the fourth or the fifth episode, you can see the evolution. Of course, Lorraine Hansberry, the cigarette, it was a fake cigarette and all, but really not just physically trying to represent them, but it was as a result of spiritually what they were bringing up within me. And that's where we got started.
Okay, so, we're in the fourth season now, so which means we've done 12 episodes in 4 tranches. Of the 4 seasons, which one would you consider to be, I know, but, you might want to share with the world. Which one would you consider to be the most challenging?
Of the 4 seasons or of any particular woman we've covered?
I'll leave that to you. You take it wherever you want to.
Which one would be the most challenging is your question?
Yeah, in terms of preparation. Because I see what you go through in terms of prepping. But, again, I'm far removed from the eventual preparation process.
It's difficult actually to answer that question. So, the process is I'm reading as much as I can about these women and preferably what they've written about themselves, their own words.
Okay.
If there are any movies, documentaries, interviews of them, I am going to sleep with them in my ear, listening to them as I'm driving, as I'm cleaning chicken coops, like whatever I'm doing, like they're in the background with me. I'm meditating on their words. And some of them are heavier than others. Like
so what do you mean heavy?
Geez. Their energy. So like Nina Simone's energy was chaotic. And of course I knew from studying her life that she was eventually diagnosed by, as having bipolar syndrome. But it was like, I was up, I was down, I was really enraged, and I'll be like really mellow. And I had to keep all these emotions within me because the people around me don't know what's going on. I can't go to court and act out or with my kids or whatever. I could, but then I would have consequences. And so, I'd be, moved to tears. I'm like, I'm cooking. Why am I crying? And so really having to try to decipher like whose energy is this? And then there are some who the one who gave me the hardest time in terms of getting access to her, because I wanted to tap into who they are spiritually, not just reading their words, is Toni Cade Bambara. I would say like up to half an hour before we were supposed to go live. She was like, I don't know you. And I'm not interested in working with you in any way. So I had to go pour libation, really, I light candles, I talk to them. And so there's that part. But then the other challenging part is even after the research, so I'll have a conversation with them about, what is it that you want me to share? Like if it's written, that's one thing. But if it's something that I feel like they are exposing me to, that I haven't actually read anywhere. First of all, I need to be careful because people are like, well, where'd you get that from? But it's also how much you're letting me see you intimately, but how much do you want to give me permission to share? But then the other conversation has also been, well, how do you want me to physically present as you? So like with Sarah Baartman that we just concluded last week, that was a long conversation because her body had been so exploited. But she did not want her body covered because initially I was going to go with white and just be very chaste. And she was like, no, even though her body was exploited, she wants her daughters to be able to celebrate their bodies in the way God has made us. And so she doesn't feel like it needs to be covered in this false piety and all of that. But at the same time, like with solitude, I was actually pregnant.
Yep.
I meant to bring it. Let me see. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find it. Yes. So with solitude, I actually had this cast on. And this is a cast from when I was pregnant with my last child. And it was crazy because I couldn't breathe properly when I had the cast on, when I was doing solitude. I really felt like I was 9 months pregnant. So if you watch that episode, I was leaning back a lot because I was just trying to make space. And the cast is very light, so it wasn't that it was cast. Okay, so let me get back to the question about so in terms of challenging with Sarah Baartman, I never know how they, even after the research and sitting with them and all of that, I never really know how they're going to show up during the recording. And so sometimes you'll ask a question, I'll hear myself saying stuff and I'm like, that's not even in my notes because I do have notes. I do memorize a lot of their information. Some is just coming, organically, but I never know exactly how they're going to present. And with Sarah Baartman, I was very surprised because I don't think I stopped crying during that episode. It was just, I just felt this deep pain that she had. And then for some of them, I can feel that they are at peace where they are. And there's some of them that are still raging, that are still not at peace. So the different stories impact differently. So Peggy says, how did Sarah Baartman
affect you? Yeah.
Woo. Okay, before I answer Sarah Baartman, who was the one where when you turned off the camera, I broke down, just cried, just sobbing?
That was...
was it Nahanda? No, it wasn't Nahanda.
No, that was Kuzwayo.
No. Did I cry at Kuzwayo?
Yeah.
No, there was oh my God, and she's gonna kill me
because of the abuse.
No, the other sister who committed suicide.
The sister who committed suicide was Bemisekin.
You're gonna kill me. I'm so sorry. There are too many of you in my head right now.
Hold on.
But I can feel her right now in the sugarcane fields, and they made a pact and they committed suicide together.
That was
so that they would not be captured.
That was the Ghanaian sister at Saint Jean.
Yes. So
Brave of Saint Jean.
So some of them, like, it's all I can do to hold the emotion in while we're on camera. And then at the end, I am so spent. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I physically cannot do anything else that evening after we're done recording. Like, I just have to, I might go to the water. I might go, meditate, or I might just pass out. I just never know how they're going to show up or what they're feeling that I experience or think I experience. I feel I experience. So, yeah, it can get quite intense.
I mean, to echo the thoughts of the audience in the chat, Sarah Baartman was shocking for me because if you understand how colonialism was used to demonize Africans, she got it. She became the exhibit of barbarity, if you can even use such a word to describe what she went through. The prodding, the display, the to the point where even in her death, you still wanted to own her body. That is how depraved this set of people can be. So for me, that was such a marker of the kind of depravity that these people are capable of. I mean, clearly they've done worse, but to see that fully documented from early age to her passing is, and we need not go to the solitude when after she gave birth, you basically executed her. I mean, it's
and as you talk about stories, I think one of the reasons, I should stop saying I think, I know. One of the reasons Sarah Baartman is still, and even calling her that name, I wish I knew what her
real name was.
Yes.
But
this is the name that we have. One of the reasons that she's still very much not at peace where she is because although hers was so egregious, now we also know that she was not the only quote unquote Venus Hottentot. There was another one.
Yeah.
But then if you come back to the United States of America, and actually you can look at other places too, but it's documented here in the United States of America, where they did have enslaved Black women who sold at a higher price because they weren't purchasing them to work the fields. They were purchasing them to be sex slaves. So even when we look at the Epstein files, Epstein did not do anything different from what his ancestors had been doing for centuries to women of color and then to also their own women, but more so us because so many of the laws were against us. And these women had zero agency, and you just knew that you were being purchased to be somebody's sexual plaything who they can then pass on to whomever. And there was no one for you to cry out to. And their stories are untold. And of course, sex trafficking continues today in a variety of ways. And so, yeah, her story was difficult. Ellen Kuzwayo's was difficult. So now as we go into the next, I give you a list of the women that we're going to cover for that season. I'm now trying to make sure that I don't have too many really back to back really hard
traumatic.
Yes, because it takes my mind, my body a while to recover. And to be honest with you, every single one of those women stays with me. They have stayed with me. They don't completely go anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. We've looked at
I'm going to ask you some questions too, but carry on.
Yeah, I know it's coming, but for now you're on the radar. When it comes to Africans and people of African descent, music has often been the form of expression. So when we looked at Victoria Santa Cruz and the job she did with regards to putting the Afro-Peruvian experience, I won't say the people, the experience on the map, what goes into you deciding, okay, this person is worthy? I mean, worthy isn't probably not. But it's time for this person to be given the limelight as opposed to somebody else.
That's a great question. So this past season, I actually looked at dates. So who was born during this, either born or died or had some major thing in their life happened during the dates that we were covering, the months we were covering. And I try to cover things as close to their dates as possible. So Sarah Baartman, the day that we covered her was actually the anniversary of her body being taken back to South Africa. So for this past season, that was pretty much my focus. As I was like, oh, okay, we've got this date to this date. Let me look for, because when I researched the women, I have an Excel sheet with all of them. And remember, I was going to do 365 days of the year. So I matched many of them up with birth dates or the dates that they died or, something
Major
seminal in their
events.
life.
Yep,
And there were, of
yep,
course,
yep.
some that I couldn't do that. And so I inserted them in different places. And so this time around, I really pretty much looked at what were the dates. But in the past, so I have 2 bookshelves that are nothing but books by or about the women that are on my list.
Okay.
And sometimes I would just go and pray, meditate, and I'm like, okay, who do I need to talk about now? The other thing that I look at is we know we're covering women across the globe. Now, it's been really difficult to find written stories about African women in Asia.
Yeah.
So anybody who has any ideas, give it to me, because I think I'll find one and then I'll research and I'm like, no, and I'll research and no.
Is not.
But
Yeah.
we pretty much covered most of the other continents. And so the other thing that I try to do is, okay, let's not have everybody from South America in this episode, or let's not have everybody from the United States of America or North America. Let's not have everyone from Africa. So I try to make sure that in each season, we have the USA represented, someone from the Caribbean, someone from Africa, so on and so forth. Also, what I try to look at is how to tell the story across time. And so having some more ancient women, if you will, and then some that are more modern. So like with this past season that we just concluded, we had
Solitude.
We had Yaa Asantewaa, we had Sarah, who and Ndate, those were all earlier times. And then we came all the way down to Yvonne Vera, who was born in 1964, or Ellen Kuzwayo, who died in 2000, and Victoria Santa Cruz died in 2014. So a little bit more contemporary, even though she was much older when she passed away. Just also trying to show the diversity in that way. But then I also look at their path to resistance or their tools for resistance. So like I wouldn't do all musicians or actors.
Or
I
writers.
wouldn't do all writers, so just trying to mix it up so that as people are listening, there are people who are going to lean more to, I wanted to hear about a writer. And there are people who are going to, I wanted more of the theatrics of the people in the dramatic arts, those kind of things. Yeah.
You are listening to Women and Resistance with Aya Fubara Eneli Esquire and Adesoji Iginla, where we honor the voices of women who have shaped history through courage and defiance. If you're finding these stories inspiring, take a moment to subscribe, share, and support this platform. Together, we amplify the voices that deserve to be heard. Now, back to the conversation. Okay. And you mentioned Ellen Kuzwayo, particularly about that in the sense that we currently have an Afrophobia situation going on in South Africa. And she is obviously of South African descent.
Some people may not know what you're referring to.
Oh, okay. So for those who are unaware, South Africa currently pushing back against, in their minds, foreigners, as they call them, which are essentially Africans who have been living in the South Africa and they consider them foreigners. Sort of replicating this anti-immigration bent that is currently going around the world. And one of the sad case was that of a woman that was about to give birth that was pulled out of hospital. She ended up losing the baby, and story as to what happened to her is still rather sketchy. But then I'm just saying, we know the story of Kuzwayo, one of abuse, and she cut herself free from it, through the help of community and what have you. Now, in that same space where abuse such as that is happening, how do we marry what these women have gone through with what we're currently seeing in those spaces where they previously existed? Because, the point of this podcast is to show, okay, women experienced this in the past, but that is still their reality today. So how do we,
Well, what do you think? How do we?
Well, I'm a man, so I can't really talk about.
You can talk.
No,
I talk about chicken. I'm not a chicken.
I can't, I can't possibly put my head on the parapet and,
No, seriously.
Well, no, okay. So my take would be there are women doing the work in terms of, obviously this is a way of honoring the women who have done the work previously, but there are still women who are doing the work at present.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a way of a nod to them by saying, okay, in the course of the presentation, if we can just pull in some more contemporary voices, say when we did Kuzwayo, there will be women who are doing the work of protecting women who are at risk. And then, sort of leaning to say, okay, probably they were inspired by what has gone before. I mean, when we did Winnie as well, Winnie said one of the reasons why she took up the mantle was if she didn't, who else would?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know for me in researching these women and wanting to share their stories, first of all, if we don't know who we are and if we don't know what we're capable of, we continue to buy into the lies that are fed to us. And just as we can talk about racism and how that has caused some internalized hatred, how that has caused some of us to feel like we're imposters or we're some inferiority complex, women go through this as well. And there are many times when, because we have imbibed and bought into certain ideas of what it means to be a woman, we can now be the gatekeepers for ourselves. So, for instance, if you look at what, in this part of the world is called female genital mutilation, most of the stories that I have read and people I have spoken to who have gone through that ritual, it wasn't the men holding them down and it wasn't the men cutting off their clitoris. It would be other women. And yet, what is the purpose for this genital mutilation? It is to make sure that you don't become promiscuous.
Yeah.
And that sex is not a thing that women desire. And then you're just there to please your man, so to speak. And so, or when women will have children and in some cultures be sewed up tighter, if you will. I know this is a little graphic, but it will be another woman doing it.
Yep, doing it, correct. Yep.
Serving the patriarchy, basically. Not basically, serving the patriarchy.
The patriarchy.
And so for me, part of telling the story was also for us to liberate ourselves and to understand how whatever we are experiencing today, our mothers, great-grandmothers, foremothers all have been experiencing this for a long period of time. And it's the duality of patriarchy and this false sense of white supremacy, which is really just their insecurity. But those dual forces have really sought to not just erase women, to annihilate us in every sense except to be producers for the patriarchy. And so if we have a better understanding of how long we have been at this fight for women, perhaps that allows us to see each other with a different set of eyes and to really support one another. In addition to that, though, it's not just sharing these stories for women to get an understanding. It's also for Black men. I don't really care about white people because Marimbani and Francis Cress Wilson have let me know all I need to know about them. They're going white, and their insecurities I can't do anything about, nor do I want to expend my energy on that. But if Black men can also, men of African descent, can also look at these stories. So for these past 12 weeks, we covered from 1772 all the way to 2014. And you keep seeing the same themes come up. Yes, some of the women we cover have had healthy relationships with the men in their lives. So many of them.
Many of them.
The majority of them have been struggling on two fronts. They're fighting white supremacy, their ideology of being supreme, which they're not, but then they're also fighting their own menfolk. And we cannot be liberated if we are at war with each other. So part of my hope with all of this is for all of us to be able to take a step back and say, wait a second, look at the patterns of what have been done to us. Look at the roles that different entities are playing, including us. And how can we recalibrate so that we can see each other, feel for each other, heal together, so we can really win the ultimate fight for our liberation.
Speaking of liberation, one of the subjects in the last season was Queen Mother More. And we've seen how a reparation has now become the talk of the day by the resolution that South Africa got passed in last couple of weeks. Now, if we bring the reparation issue forward, how do you think the present politics in the United States, in light of the loss of jobs of Black women in the federal states, how would you think this quest for reparation plays into what Queen Mother More was suggesting with her call for reparation at the time she did?
Well, you know what gives me hope during this time when, for all intents and purposes, America is trying to go through its third Reconstruction and send us back into to Jim Crow, is when you look at the life of someone like Queen Audre Lorde, who was born in 1898. So at that point, we were facing exactly what we're facing now: the erasure of Black people from
all walks of life,
legislature, and so on and so forth. But then she lived all the way till 1997, and you see all of the changes that she got to experience. Both world wars,
the Cold War,
yes. The civil rights movement, all of that. And so the Harlem Renaissance, everything. And so how that informs me today is we don't stop fighting. And whatever we are going to see, whatever we're seeing right now, we have seen before. We should go and study what happened and what our responses were then to figure out how we respond maybe differently this time around, so that it's not an almost 100-year drought. I don't think that if she were here today that she would necessarily be surprised by the white lash we're experiencing. I think that she would have predicted it for us that, hey, you have a Black president, expect them to come back. And too many of us just weren't paying attention. And I believe at this point, she would just be whipping us all up like, let's go. Because it seems like she got feistier as she got older. She did have some regrets about, choices she made in her life, particularly as in the ways that it impacted her only living child.
Yeah.
But I believe she'll say, hey, get up, let's go, let's organize. No time to sit back and look pretty or be complacent or feel hopeless, particularly given all that she saw and experienced.
Okay. One of the themes that we have over the course of the 4 seasons and more so in this last season is the touching of myths, taboos, and scenes of. By that, I'm referring to the work of Yvonne Vera, where she was talking about, you alluded to the Epstein files earlier, which was largely the issue that was swept on the carpet and continues to be anymore. But then with the spate of disappearance of girls and what have you in the United States, especially girls of African descent, and how the Amber Alert is not triggered when young Black girls go missing. What would you say our role as women, as men, as the Black community is, in light of the fact that they did say the pen is mightier than the sword? why is it our pen the ink has suddenly run dry when it comes to picking up the issues of Black liberation?
So first, I'm going to ask you, who said the pen is mightier than the sword? Because while they're telling us that, they want to spend $1.5 trillion on quote unquote defense, which is, but they appropriately are trying to rename it war. And you have African nations who are signing security agreements with their very oppressors. Like someone is literally telling you, no, I do not believe enslaving you was a huge issue. Marco Rubio is standing up and saying, we want to go back to the good old days when we were expanding empire and colonizing all of you. And then African leaders will go and say, let's sign a memorandum of agreement. You're going to help us with so-and-so, and you're going to help us with our security. So I start off with, I don't know who said it. Someone can put it in the chat, I guess, who said the pen is mightier than the sword. Perhaps it is. Perhaps it's not. We need to have that conversation and not just take things at face value, because I really believe that if you cannot defend your freedom, you're not really free. And isn't that what happened to Africa and continues to happen to us? So yes, now, am I saying now don't feed people and just go and buy weapons of mass destruction because that is the Yurugu of, and they're silly of, that's their silly of these white folk? Going back to my Mbanese Yurugu, no, I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying, though, is I don't know that we have to do an either or as much as we need to be fighting on all fronts. And what you see with the women that we're covering is they all use different tools. Somewhere it was just singing, right? And then if we look at Santa Cruz, for instance, right? What was it was evoking that sense of pride in who she was as an Afro-Latina. By the way, I had the most fun this season trying to get dressed up like her because I was trying to get her eyebrows and the hair was hairy. It's really difficult to get my hair under these little wigs. It'd be looking a hot mess in the back. It's like, and as you know, as soon as we go off camera, I can't wait to take whatever it is I have off my head because women, I love us. I don't know how we do these wigs. Ooh, cuts off my circulation. But anyway, I had the most fun dressing up as her. She had a really fun, lighter spirit, if you will. But so we see her with music and dance. We see Yvonne Vera with the pen, and she is telling these stories, you know, of course, eventually curated, was a curator for a museum and so on and so forth. But we see Audre Lorde. We see Ida B. Wells also use the pen, right?
Yeah.
But Ndate Mboj was like, we're fighting.
Yeah.
Used other things as well.
And Fanny Lou Hamer too was fighting. Yeah.
And so for all of us, and this is what I take away from these women's stories, is that they were all pretty ordinary people who just stepped up and did the extra. And we are celebrating them. We're reading about them. We're studying them today because we now see them as extraordinary people. But each and every one of us has that in us.
Yeah.
And so it might be through cooking and poisoning. No, I didn't say that, but I did. It might be through child rearing. Like you are the one who is bringing forth children and raising them strong. You might be the neighborhood mama where everybody knows, you know, when my kids were younger, and since I had a flexible work schedule, folk would just, can you keep my kid?
Turn up.
Bring the child. You know, so you can have peace of mind to go do what you need to do. And maybe that's my way of preventing a child from being abducted because they're at home alone or they're out on, you know, playing with no one watching them or whatever. And so I guess I say all of that to say, I don't necessarily feel like we have to say which tool is better than the other. I think we need everybody to examine what they have to fight with and to fight with it. And that's what we see these women doing.
I mean, we touched on Fanny Lou Hamer. I mean, this season, the fact that she went from literally using the words she heard on the pulpit as a way of gathering strength? Because did she not say what's it called? The Democratic Party didn't want to sit there, didn't want to seek their platform and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I want to pose with regards
to her questions
to her would be, we've seen the gutting of the Voting Rights Act. We've seen the redrawing of the maps and what have you. What would you think she would say to Black women now that you've seen that basically war has been declared? How would you think she would want Black women to respond? Not react. Because we don't react, we respond.
So I think Fannie Lou Hamer will be bringing hell to everybody, women and men. I think she first will give us a talking to in terms of how complacent we got and how we did not consolidate in the ways that we could have. I think that she would remind us that we need to be creating a better future for our youth and that is our responsibility. And I think she would be very disgusted with many of us right now because Fannie Lou Hamer, with the very little formal education that she had, was tireless in her pursuit for justice. And she ran for office and she founded that farm to feed people. Like, she was very proactive, very action oriented. And she wasn't looking for someone to necessarily come and save us. And so I believe she, again, will, like Queen Mother Moore, will be saying, get up. And she would also be saying, particularly, I can hear her right now in my head, all of these much older elected officials, she's going to be asking them, who are you mentoring? Like, you were never put in this position for it to just become your birthright and now you're going to die in the position. Who are you mentoring? Who are you bringing along? Because she worked with some very young people. She worked with, I think, Eleanor Norton. Holmes Norton. She worked with, she's actually on the list of women we're going to do. She founded I'm looking at her face right now. Marianne Edelman. She worked with her as a very young attorney. I think she'll be saying, put your arms around these young people and let us work together. You older folk, you've consolidated power and then didn't do much with it. Did not effectively teach the younger people, but we need their energy, their passion in this time. So to hell with these intergenerational wars, to hell with these intergender wars. Can we all get on the same page and can we stop fighting? And of course, she will be eviscerating the Black elites who go along to get along.
Black bourgeoisie.
I can hear her making a rap song just for all the rap artists out here who suddenly are MAGA. Well, maybe not suddenly, because they think they've got two pennies to rub together.
I mean, you alluded earlier to the fact that Queen Mother Moore was born in the late 1890s. She probably, going through time, she probably saw everything come back around again. I suppose the same can be said for Ida B. Wells, where we've had cases of lynching, or quote unquote, people taking their own lives and what have you. But the hallmarks of lynching.
Ida B. Wells would definitely be, why are you guys quiet about what's happening to our young people? Where are they disappearing to? That many? So consistently? Yeah. I can see her taking up that crusade and asking us why we aren't.
Exactly. So, and we have more tools in sense of Instagram. You have all the social
tools,
media
not
apps.
as much courage, I think, because we feel like we have more to lose.
So where is the resistance?
The resistance is still here. Of course, the propaganda tools are also going to make sure that those who are really resisting do not get the limelight in the same way. The tools of surveillance are also a lot more powerful today than in the past. So it would be very difficult, for instance, for Assata Shakur to do today what she was able to do back then.
Do that. Yeah.
because there are cameras everywhere. It's so easy to spy on all of us. This phone that I carry around, the FBI doesn't even have to come in and plant any device in my home or around me, because I'm carrying the device and I've agreed to a contract that I did not even read this fine print on, where these guys have access to. They know where I go,
Everything. Yeah.
what I spend, who I talk to. Yeah. So a little different the times that we're in. We have more tools. Our oppressors also have more tools. The tool that we used to have, that they very wisely actually attacked initially when they started to colonize us, and that we need to tap back into, is that spiritual tool. Not their white Jesus and not Muhammad, but tapping back into our ways of interacting with spirit, with God, with nature, and being able to then protect ourselves in a whole different way. And of course, Malada Somé writes a little bit about this in his book of Water and Spirit. So does Credo Mutwa, and there are many others as well. But of course, that takes some quiet, that takes some deep, it takes a lot of quiet, takes deep introspection. And what our society has gotten really good at is keeping us so distracted that it's hard to get into those places. So I have a home office, and there are many times when I'm working in my home office and there's nobody home besides the dog. And yet my house isn't quiet of industrial noises because the fridge is humming.
Yeah.
And I will hear the AC or the heat kick on. And they're just like all of this, and just not just nature sounds, but it's just like there's always something. And when it actually gets really quiet, like there are times when your appliances are quiet, and then I'm like, okay, because that
What's going on?
constant
Yeah.
noise that we get is not there. And so it takes some real intentionality to find the time and the space to be quiet. And if you live in inner city America, or in inner city, any major city, there's no quiet. When I lived in Brooklyn in Bedford-Stuyvesant, you actually got concerned when it got quiet. What made you know everything was okay was the constant noise and the
Of the engine.
sirens and everything. When it got really quiet, it sounded like it was eerily quiet. And so in those spaces, it's actually really hard to find a place where you can be at one with God. One of the reasons I didn't raise children in New York, I lived in New York before I got married, was because all around me were what I called concrete jungles. Luckily, I worked at the College of Staten Island, and there was a lot more green space, and there was like a man-made lake on the property of the college and all of that. But that's where I went to when I would go to work, to just kind of reconnect. Because where I lived in Brooklyn was just sapped my soul, quite frankly. Yeah. And I don't think I answered your question, but
No. In a way you did. In a way you did. I'm minded that we're coming to the end of this episode. But one last question.
Okay.
Audre Lorde, writer, poet, she sort of embodies what everybody that we've covered so far held out, in the sense that, I'm going to use United States now. United States, through Roe v. Wade, took matters into their hands with regards to the woman's autonomy. Here was a woman who was outrightly lesbian, and she lived her best life.
Did she?
That's what the press will have us believe. But I bring her up as a metaphor for what is possible for women when they truly live out themselves. What would you say?
I would not, and Mama Audrey, you can spank me later if you want to. I would not at all put her up as an example of what women are able to. I shouldn't say at all.
No, okay. I mean, not the whole picture, but I'm saying in terms of how she portrays to the world, right? What would you say to women who looked to her in that guise of writer, poet. I mean, they say the power of word, power lies in words. She was a warrior with words. So, in terms of our poem, in terms of our the famous essay she wrote, which is "You can't destroy the master house with the master tools." What would you say should be the guiding thread from her writings?
I think I admire her. I need to stop saying this. I admire her courage in trying to figure out who she was and in being as open and honest as she was with her life and her perspective on imperialism and patriarchy and all the ways that that is harming women of color, women of African descent. What I struggle with Audre Lorde is even as she was doing good work and exposing the demons of others and how they impacted us, she was also very abusive in her intimate relationships. And so the message I actually take from her is the importance of us healing, doing that healing work. And that is for all of us, male and female, because again, time and time again, we will see men of African descent who have done great work in some other aspects of their lives.
But
And
fall
yet,
short.
when it comes to their intimate relationships or with, lovers, partners in that sense, or even with their children, they show up in a very different way. And that's the other thing we see. I mean, like with Audre Lorde's mother, we see that there was some trauma there that, showed up in how she parented her daughter. And so what I take from Audre Lorde is the importance for, as much as you are fighting the external demons, to also do the healing work. And I don't care that we're almost at the hour. I'm going to ask you some questions. So you can take up all the time if you want to. But before I ask you the question, I just want to say thank you first and foremost for the push for us to do this and for providing your platform and for the sacrifice that you make, because it's pretty late where you are.
Yep.
And so the fact that you stay up every Wednesday night and that you're reading and researching these women as well as I am. So here's my first question. Very important intellectual question. Why the hell are you always laughing on screen where I cannot look at the screen because you are going to throw me off? What is wrong with you?
No. Okay. So the reason I chuckle is because I see you before you come on screen. I have this picture in my head, like, okay, I've seen this, but because I can't chuckle before we come on, it's in me, and it's like, okay, I'm gonna try as much as possible to muffle it, but the kind of person I am is like, nah.
Yeah, so I don't look at you guys. I do not look at the screen, and I don't go back to watch, so I can't tell if my eyes are everywhere else. I literally cannot look at the screen because on a few occasions when I do, you're making some kind of face, and I'm like, dude, like I'm trying to stay focused here, and you are throwing me off. So yeah, that part. Oh, so you think that when I come on screen, it's funny?
No. I'm not saying it's funny. I'm saying, okay. So it's one thing to know you, but it's another thing to see a character,
Okay, got you.
So when you say character, I was like, okay, all right, okay. This is what we're doing now. Okay, fine, okay. So
yeah, and for that, in just this moment, I am grateful for you because, like some of you have heard before, I feel like you came into my life not to replace, but to help me deal with my brother passing. And there are certain mannerisms where, yeah, I would slap you like I used to slap him when you were, oh, am I saying I was violent? No, it was a nice love tap. So of the 12 women that we covered this time around, which one had a story that was most surprising to you? Like you really did not know that about her. Was there anyone that you had not heard of before that you were hearing about for the first time once I gave you the list?
I'm gonna be partial, so it's gonna have to be It was.
By the way, you all should know he falls in love with so many of these women. Who's the one that you absolutely, if you could meet her right now, you would be all over her?
It will be Beatrice.
Yes, he couldn't stop talking about her because there's a picture of her in a bikini in her book and she looks amazing. But anyway, I'm just outing you tonight. But carry on.
So for me, it would have been, what's her name? The writer, Lorraine Hansberry. I've read a book, but that aspect of her life in terms of when she decided, you know what, I want to live my life the way I want to. But still, you had, quote unquote, a husband in the house, but you're still putting out as if he doesn't exist. To the point where, to be fair to him, he kept her legacy alive. Were it not for him, we probably won't have anything to read about Lorraine Hansberry.
Yeah,
So
but she was
that was the one
she
that
was
that
also
was
his cash cow in life, and
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
there's that aspect
But
of
he
it.
he did support her work.
Yeah. So for me, that was the part that stood out to me. Was like, okay, so this is actually possible. But if you understand the value of the work being done, you would, I won't say sacrifice yourself, but go the extra mile, as it were, to ensure that legacy stood still. But the most painful one for me would be, what's the lady from Puerto Rico who was buried in a poor cemetery?
Yeah.
Because if it's one thing to be lost, it shows how human beings are nothing but expendable in a capitalist society. That a human being will die. And were it not for the fact that she previously wrote, nobody would remember who she is. That was, for me, that was like, yeah, this work needs to be done. Because that is essentially what this podcast embodies. The aspect of bringing...
That would be...
Yeah, Julia de Bogus. Yeah. So can you imagine? She leaves Puerto Rico, no family in the mainland, comes, works for pittance, gets fired, no work. She turns to the drink, to the bottle. She loses everything. And then when it comes to her passing, basically in an unmarked box, just, I mean.
And how many more? How many more are there?
Exactly. I mean, that's the ones we know.
Yeah.
So
and then all the ones at the bottom of the ocean, all the ones thrown.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, there are a host of them. But those three, just, for obvious reasons, just stand out to me. It's like, because even the way Nascimentos died, she was trying to defend a woman and got killed for it. It goes to show that resistance is still very much that stance, as it were.
Needed stance and a dangerous stance all at the same time. So certainly a thread that has run through many of the lives of these women, not all of them, but many of them, is male violence. How have you processed that, and what message would you have for men of African descent?
I would say it's not going to be controversial. I mean,
I'm clipping this part. Go ahead. What do you say?
No. It speaks to a degree of weakness, but you cannot argue your point without resorting to violence. It speaks to a degree of weakness. I mean, either you don't have the lexicon or the vocabulary to match what you intend to express, and then you resort to fisticuffs, because there is another thing. It's not just weakness. It's also this element of you feeling inferior. And that can only come from the way you see yourself, because no one can make you feel that way. It's only the way you see yourself. And if you just listen to the kind of running thread of quote unquote victimized men commentary that is going on the internet, and you listen to them, this is one common line. It's this question of how do you express whatever it is in your tiny little brain, and because you can't do it and you see somebody else thriving, you lash out.
Yeah.
And that to me has always, it's just weak.
And
It's just
and of
weak.
course we're seeing it continue to play out today with the numbers of Black women who are in the media who are being covered right now for being murdered by
I
their
mean,
intimate partners.
again, proximity. You can't do that outside. You lash out to the nearest, to the closest. You know, I mean, that's that's the way I say men has, I mean, there are some men, there are also men who, for them, it's a call of duty. It's like, you know what, we need to do better. We need to do better.
So Ms.
We need
Chris
to do better.
says, pushing back a little bit, our ancestors didn't have the lexicon and did what they needed. I wish you were online. Can you expound on that? What lexicon did our ancestors not have?
I mean, they had
Because
the
as I study, if we go far back enough, and in the lives of some of these women, even if you look at Ndate Mboj, she was involved with men who respected her prowess, who respected what she brought to the table, and it wasn't, the men within her. I mean, she led their army, if you will.
Yeah.
And so we certainly can see that culturally there was a time when women were, I even hate to say we're seen as equal. We're just human like everybody else. We have skill sets, and men have skill sets, and this doesn't have to be a competition per se. But we certainly, across the continent of Africa now, even in societies that used to be matrilineal, there's definitely this concept of gender roles and women being less than and the weaker sex, and God said, he's the head, and so on and so forth. They may not have had the language that we have today, but didn't always need to turn to violence. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I certainly never saw my father raise a hand to my mother. Having said that, violence doesn't have to be physical to be there are different ways to be violent, but
I mean,
I did not experience that necessarily.
Funny enough, you made that example. I was speaking to my brother and a family friend today, and we were talking about also, they never saw so they saw my mom as very genteel. And I was like, you clearly don't know who this woman is. She was very feisty. And so my husband was like, no, how can she be feisty against a 6'2" man? Like she was. But you never saw fisticuffs. You never saw. It was like, hobby, can I have a word? And they step into the room. Words were exchanged. You heard it. But when they came out, it was a united front. It wasn't like, so you immediately knew that, yes, things could be that. And so, again, having seen that, it's when I see people who step out of line, I mean, again, some will argue, but women too also, they abuse physically.
Yeah, we can be violent.
There's no need for it. There's just no need for it.
Yeah.
There's no need for it. There's no need for it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The last thing that I want to share, just in terms of going through these women's lives, is, I've already talked about the fact that they were all, in my opinion, pretty ordinary women. Yes, some were born into, certain quote unquote royal lineage and all of that. But imagine that there were other women born into those lineages, but we don't know about all of them. So this person also just stepped out and did a little bit more. The other thing is, we live in a society now that maybe because of social media, it's so much about, how you present, slay queen and all of that. And certainly each of these women had their own way of being. Yes, for sure. And certainly those who were more in like the dramatic arts, you could see that more in how they presented. But like when I was researching Ellen Kuzwayo and I was watching her videos, I'm like, this woman pretty much woke up, took a bath, put on her clothes and was like, let's go to work. And it wasn't all of
dawning, glow, glow.
And I'm not choosing one over the other. Like, of course, we did Flojo, and Flojo was all about all of that.
Glamour.
But
Yeah.
she also had some deeper aspects to her that maybe people dismiss because they just saw the outward packaging. So for me, as I look at it, I'm just saying, embrace who you are, and however it is that you are comfortable in your own skin. That's not what determines your level of influence, even in this society that is so image conscious, is women just being who they are. And so, like I said, part of the conversation I would have with them is, how do you want me to present? And with Ellen Kuzwayo, because she doesn't, like, a lot of her edges are kind of gone. She was a much older lady. So first of all, it would be, okay, what time frame do you want me to present you in? So some of them want to be presented looking younger, and some of them want to be presented looking older. And so I would try to draw lines to, like, deepen my furrows. And I don't know if you guys can tell, I am not a, what do they call it?
Makeup artist.
I am not a makeup artist by any stretch of the imagination. But it was always interesting to me, like, what era of their time, and how they wanted to be presented. But each person just kind of embodied who they were. And I think just having that courage to show up as who you are, whatever that is, whether other people think it's flamboyant, like, what's the sister from, I'm looking at her right now, I had the rhinestone glasses with her, the singer.
That would be Celia Cruz.
Celia Cruz was like, long before these latest hip hop artists started wearing the colored hair, Celia Cruz was wearing orange hair and blue hair and pink hair and all of that. And yet, when I got into her story, she was so deep. So just, you don't have to be anybody but yourself.
True.
Is what I'm taking from all of this. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. And they will tell me, like, there are times when I'm trying to get dressed and, like, no, don't take that out. I'm like, I'm not going shopping. So we have to work with what I have somewhere in my wardrobe. So what you all want us to work with here? Let's figure it out. Yeah. So interesting times.
Yes. And as is customary, that was this week's episode, which is basically a review of season 4. Season 5 will begin next week with Josephine Baker. So
no, are we starting with Josephine Baker? No, we're not.
Yeah, we're starting with Josephine Baker.
No, we're not.
We're starting with Josephine
Baker.
No,
we're not. We're starting with Mbokumo.
Okay.
No, you're kidding me, right?
No, yeah, I'm kidding.
Okay.
We're starting with Mbokumo.
Okay.
So,
no, because because I need more time. Josephine Baker has already told me I need more time to process her. I have her story written, but I need more time. Yeah, I better not have put her next week. No, sir. She's a lot.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so we're starting with Mbokumo next week. Yeah. So season 5 begins next week. And as usual, we must say thank you. We must say thank you for everyone coming through. And
please share the word. If you are benefiting from this in any way, share the word, share it on your social media, tell other people to come and listen. Send them. You. Interestingly enough, my parents are visiting. I promise this will be the last thing. My parents are visiting, and so the last 2 Wednesdays, I'm like, turn off the TV, no banging in the kitchen. Like, I need you guys to be quiet. What are you doing? I'm doing this for. So I come out, and last week, I've got the wig on, and just that little thing that I had tied up. My father's like, you were on, because he thought I was maybe meeting with a law client or whatever. He's like, what are you doing? And I was trying to explain. I said, you know what? I'll just put it on the TV for you guys to see. So I put it on, I pull up your YouTube channel, I put it on, and I left because, I'm sensitive about this work. And most of my family are just kind of like, what you doing? Anyway, so first my father's reaction was, why are you saying your father's dead? I'm right here. What are you talking about? And so then my mother was explaining to him, no, she's not talking about herself. She's telling the story of someone else. He's like, yeah, but the screen says I am Fubara and Eneli. Okay. So then he really starts listening, and I left the room again. And after it was done, I come back and he's like, wow, they really did those things. Now, my father was a student in England, studied in London. And I said, and you went to Piccadilly Square and didn't even know what they used to do to us there. And he's like, no, I had no idea. And so then we start talking. And he's like, so you just tell these stories about these women? So today he was like, are you going to do another one today? And I said, no, today is just a recap. But he's actually watched like 3 episodes of different ones we've done now. His reaction has been a hoot. But, he's really just been like, wow, I didn't know you had that in you. So that's been fun sharing this with my father. But I'm just saying that I said all of that to say, he's like, I'd like to watch more of this. And I said, well, I put it in the family chat when we started. And my mother's like, we didn't know what you were talking about. But now that they've seen it, they want to see more. And so please share the word. Certainly these women deserve to be known, deserve to be honored, and are an inspiration to those of us to hear about them. So share, like, subscribe, get more people to subscribe.
Yep.
This
And
is
it's also
part
a
of the
window.
resistance.
It's also a window into this women's life. So it's a starting point for people to go away and do more research,
Yeah.
And yes. So that said, we've come to the episode, the end of this week's season review. Season review 4. Next week, it's going to be Imbokumo. Sister, final thoughts?
Just grateful for these women, grateful that we have the tools to keep telling their stories. Excited for anybody who gets inspired by one of them and decides to take that mantle and run with it. We have a lot of work to do, and it's going to require us all. So thank you so much for always supporting and pushing me as well. Yeah.
And up late as well.
Yes. And being so mischievous. Yes.
Yeah. I'll try not to be. So, yes, until next week when we come back, do like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And so, until next week, it's good night and God bless.
That is it for this episode of Women and Resistance. Thank you for joining us in amplifying the voices of women who challenged injustice and changed the course of history. Be sure to subscribe, share, and continue the conversation. Together, remember, we honor the past, act in the present, and shape the future. Until next time, stay inspired and stay in resistance.